Welcome to the work session for the Village of Pleasantville Board of Trustees. Today is Monday, January 13, and from 7 to 8, we're in work session, 8 o'clock to our regular session. First item on our agenda is a conversation about a potential memorandum of understanding with the Housing Action Council regarding accessory dwelling units. Rose Noonan of the Housing Action Council is on our call. Are you there, Rose?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
All right, so board members, the potential memorandum of understanding is attached in the agenda, and we had a conversation. Eric and I had a Zoom call with Rose a week or two ago, and the short version of the longer story is that Housing Action Council is in a position consistent with whatever zoning codes and approval requirements we have to find opportunities to assist people in developing ADUs. I'm within the white line so far, Rose?
That's correct, yes.
All right. Why don't you just give a quick update on what the program is?
Sure. Okay. And thank you for this opportunity. We have been working with this Housing Action Council has been working with a state-funded program called Plus One ADUs, accessory dwelling units, now for about a year and a half. And we had sought funding for it several years ago, and have actually received funding twice now under different rounds, and are providing assistance in a number of municipalities to help people who are interested in creating or legalizing accessory dwelling units to take advantage of a funding opportunity from the state. Our experience with accessory dwelling units has been that there's been very, very little affordable housing created under these accessory apartment ordinances. It is our opinion that one of the issues, or two of the issues, are one that is it costs a lot to create such a unit, and many people are unfamiliar or uncomfortable with the process of getting it designed and taking it through its local approval processes. And so this funding program from the state works within the accessory apartment ordinances that are within each municipality, and is available to homeowners whose incomes don't exceed what we refer to as 100% of the Westchester County median income. And with the assistance, which is up to $125,000 per accessory unit, the homeowner can receive a design assistance, and then assistance in identifying both the architect and the contractor who will be involved in either legalizing or forming the ADU. And as part of that funding, Housing Action Council receives funding from the state also to deliver these services. So for the past several years, we have been launching it in the river communities of Irvington, also Dobbs Ferry, and one of the other, Hastings on Hudson, and also in the town of Bedford, under what we refer to as Round 2, which is a more recent funding approval. We have the town of Cortland, village of Croton on the Hudson, and the town of Yorktown. And then the third is, this is the third round of funding that we'd be seeking from the state. And we're inviting the village of Pleasantville and several other municipalities to join us in this application. The memorandum of understanding that we're asking you to consider is to indicate that you are familiar with the program, that you're willing to work with Housing Action Council to help people in your community become aware of the opportunity. And as we are going through the process of people who may be interested in using the program, if we identify provisions within your ordinance that might be thought about as for possible change, that you consider it. There's no obligation on the part of the village to take any responsibility or liability for this program. It's a contract between Housing Action Council and New York State. You're indicating that you would help us with outreach and that you're interested in helping homeowners who may be interested in this opportunity to take advantage of it. The application is due on the 15th. It's a they made the announcement just before the holidays that the funds were available. The Village of Tarrytown has agreed to join us in this round, and we believe tonight the town of Lewisboro will be the second community, and we invite 3 at a time generally, just so that we have, if it's approved, that we have an opportunity to adequately outreach in your communities, to let people know of this opportunity. We know that a whole lot of units won't be created this way in any particular municipality, but our organization, which is a nonprofit, takes the position of this helps people stay in their homes who are perhaps on fixed incomes, and provides a rental housing resource for additional revenue coming into their home, or it may provide an opportunity for a relative or a friend or a colleague to live in the unit. There are no restrictions on the accessory unit in terms of income level of who may live there or the rent levels. The income criteria is on the homeowner who would be participating in the program, which, as I mentioned, is 100% of the Westchester County median income, and that's adjusted by family size. So if you had one person, that current income it could not exceed $109,350. If there's 2 people in the household, $124,950. So with that, it takes a while to get it off the ground. Takes a while to let people know of the opportunity, to qualify people, and to move forward. We have now, in the first program, we have 19, that's three river communities. We have 19 applicants in process. Three are definitely moving forward, and we think another 4 or 5 will be through the process of being qualified and providing the assistance and creating the units that they're interested in. Yeah.
So thank you for that, Rose. And for those who don't know her and Housing Action Council, Rose has been a key ally in housing in general, especially certainly countywide, but a tremendous help to us at the PHDFC and Ashburn Hall, and has helped us in countless ways over a period of a decade or more. So shout out to you, Rose Noonan. And then just for people's knowledge, we have had on our books zoning code. It's Article 7, Section 185. Anybody can look it up in the village code that permits accessory apartments. Has a bunch of requirements attached to it, and as Rose suggested, this process might be an occasion to look at that. But I can report that very, very, very few people have taken advantage of this code to create or legalize ADUs in the more than 2 decades it's been on the books. And part of that has to do with the economic challenges Rose mentioned, including the difficulties associated with creating a building code compliant accessory unit. So my take on this is that it is a program we should welcome. Any questions or comments from anybody else?
Yeah, I agree. It's timely for me. I have a friend who actually is just outside of the village, whose mother-in-law is currently living with them because she suffered a heart attack, and she was looking into this program. So I recently became aware of it, and I agree with Peter. I think that it's definitely something we should support.
I think anything that can help people age in place and support them is
Yeah.
important.
Agreed.
Great.
Looks like you've got unanimity here.
No. That's always very nice.
Robert Hughes, our building inspector, is on the call. If you have anything to add, Robert?
I agree with the board. Definitely something that needs to be looked at and entertained. It's definitely a need. My concern normally being boots on the ground is just want to make sure that we're not creating any issues and our zoning code is looked at because it is pretty restrictive and requires planning board review. And I know from the state with accessory dwelling units, they're looking to have it to where you got a lot more flexibility in having these at these properties. So our zoning code really has to be looked at. So we're not creating any conflicts when this comes along at the time.
Sure. Well, so,
We would operate within the current provision of the ordinance. If we think, based on our experience of working in the village under this program, that we would suggest changes, we ask you to just consider them. But there's no obligation by participating in the state program that you need to make any changes. We would follow your local processes and requirements.
Robert, do
My
you
comment
think
would
that-
be,
Yeah,
if the village and the board is really wanting to entertain this, it really should look at our code to kind of address it so it gets flexible because there are restrictions here. And for instance, detached accessory dwelling or structures doesn't permit even any habitable space in our code. And I know a lot of people are looking, I've had phone calls with wanting to build a small house or a tiny house or ADU on their property in addition to the principal building. We don't permit that currently. So all I'm saying is I think it would be proactive to kind of look at the zoning to get the greater flexibility, not so much relying on your program to do that. We as a board in the village should be looking at that being proactive, should always be proactive with our codes.
that sounds good to me, Robert. Eric, do you have any thoughts on that? Like what would be?
No,
the
I
next
mean,
step?
that's an excellent point. I mean, chicken and the egg, right? Certainly a good opportunity to take a look at it and we can talk to our planning consultant about that.
well, but as Rose has pointed out, we can enter into this MOU with Housing Action Council with no commitment to make any changes at all.
Sure.
And it's a great occasion to give some consideration going forward to what those changes ought to be. Almost certainly that section of our zoning code dates back, I think, 25 years.
Mm.
And it likely is time for an update, but that can be part of a transparent public process. In the meantime,
Would it hinder any of the time guidelines or the timelines that Rose, you're speaking about? If we change those, how long do they take to put into place if we were to change them? Would we be
Well,
confusing people?
There'll be a time process for getting approval from the state. So we're 3 to 6 months away from an approval and then getting into a grant contract. So, it's going to be 10 months from now before we have a contract that we could launch this program.
all right, and I do think we have enough flexibility in the code that there are some opportunities even within the current rather restrictive code. And it may be that in the course of those 9-10 months, we can reconsider ways with your assistance that might make sense to make some adjustments. So, all right, so what do you need from us? You have a verbal approval that we're in.
Right.
Do you need
Well,
a resolution?
A resolution authorizing you to enter into the memorandum of understanding, the copy of which I had provided Eric, and I believe
Yes,
you
we have it.
there.
Sure.
Okay.
So if the board is in agreement, we can add a resolution to the next agenda authorizing the mayor to sign it.
All agree?
Yes.
All agree. We'll add it on. We'll vote tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for this opportunity.
Yeah.
Thanks as always.
Okay. Have a good night.
So as I mentioned, Rose has been a tremendous help to us in PHDFC and any number of things having to do with Ashburn Hall, unwinding it from the tax credit investment construction that existed for Ashburn Hall when the tax credits expired, assisting us with rolling over several apartments that the village had acquired in the 90s and which were sold as affordable apartments, but with a 25-year sunset on the affordability, with the likelihood that when they were sold, they would go back to market rate. Rose has assisted us and the county has helped a couple of times with county loans to actually buy it from the state that was selling it and then resell it with new dedicated long-standing requirements for affordability. So Rose has been great. So. All right. Back to whatever we have.
Mike Newman.
Mike Newman, yes. You there, Mike?
Hey, everybody.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
We're fine. All right. So you sent us a note about the summer concert series and the desire to waive the open container law in the new civic space on June 28, July 26, August 23, with a rain date of August 30.
Yes.
7 to 9 p.m. So just, I know we've heard before, but just remind everybody, if anybody, bless you, anyone listening, what the concert series would look like.
Yeah. So we'd be utilizing the new civic space. Those 3 nights, we'd get a band. We're working on partnering up with Soul Brewing, and we would also look to add a food truck also to the event. Looking at the space and how to essentially cordon off and keep the alcohol in the area. Basically, we will put barriers around the civic space, and I kind of highlighted on the map what I was thinking. We'd put barriers around with 2 openings. I don't love the idea, but we want to contain alcohol to one space. So a barrier is going to have to be used. I don't want to take away from the space, but it is what it is. So we would have 2 openings for entrance and exit, and we would have a staff member just reminding people and letting people know there's no alcohol beyond this point. Soul Brewing would be responsible for IDing who they're selling to.
So, just to play devil's advocate, I'm not in any way suggesting it's a bad idea. What does this look like if we didn't sell alcohol? We don't have to cordon it off and have that whole piece of it, right?
Yeah, it just takes away. We don't have to cordon it off, and we don't probably have to have a police presence. I've talked to Chief a little bit about this and Kevin Gilmartin. I would talk to them some more about possibly having at least 1 officer in the area, but it's doable without it. Our thought was to just add to the event. I know.
Yeah. But I mean, are we thinking that this would require, snow fencing all around?
Yeah, so we went back and forth on that internally. I don't want to take, if we're going to do alcohol, the snow fencing just looks poor to me. So I've looked into renting actual barriers like we used for the music festival, for example, in the entrance where we put a lane down the middle, those like steel barriers.
Yes.
Looked into renting those or even buying them. If we're going to do more events and possibly events with alcohol, it would be worth it to just buy them one time and they would pay for themselves after like 2 events.
Mm-hmm. So the notion there would be let's just say family is coming, the parents get wristbanded as being old enough to buy alcohol, the kids horse around during the concert.
Yep. And we were also talking about putting out some yard games, like getting a couple of those like large Jenga sets, a couple of cornhole tables, just a very relaxed atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I like it too. The only so just to probe the question, why, even with alcohol, why do we need the barriers?
Right, so we didn't need them on the street or
like, obviously, Sol or whoever it is can't sell alcohol to someone who hasn't been ID checked. But is it necessary to fence it off?
I would have to explore that a little bit more. I mean, again, I don't love the idea of cordoning it off because, I don't want to take away from the nice new space. But I feel like it might be necessary just to have that level of, we're aware of what we're doing and it's not necessarily come as you go. I mean, we could advertise like, this is the space. There's no alcohol. We could just put a couple signs up, post signs like, hey, no alcohol beyond this.
Again, I think separate from the question of whether we sell alcohol or allow alcohol, even if we do sell alcohol, I'm wondering whether the fence thing is really necessary. I mean,
Right. Most places that do a lot of this don't have face, like, and when I've gone to like Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow, like Plains, a lot of those places don't have fences.
Yeah, we just need, when we get our permit from the SLA, they want a delineation of where alcohol will be consumed.
so that's different from,
Chalk outline.
So
Right.
so people have to know that, it doesn't mean that the open container law is suspended throughout the village, right?
There.
And this is an
So-
evening event.
I mean, isn't that
7 to 9.
something presumably that the Soul Brewing could communicate to people?
Yeah, and also us, but I mean, we can rethink about the best mechanism to create that barrier, that boundary.
Yeah,
So just signs that say only here and in Peter's porch, and that's it.
So how important is it? I mean, what do people think about how important it is to sell alcohol? I mean, clearly this is an event, but the type of event that a generation ago would never have been alcohol. I don't mean to suggest that
true?
that's the template for the
In
future.
Mormon times, not at all.
I don't know about that. I mean,
Is that true? I feel
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Really?
I mean, I can tell you that alcohol is not sold at any Pleasantville event ever.
right, growing up, you're right.
Right.
Yeah, growing up, definitely not. I mean, we have a brewery in the
But people-
center of town.
but
I'm not, believe me,
But every bar was
I'm a
packed.
teetotaler, I'm just asking the
But,
question.
but it's funny, but every bar was packed. Just it wasn't like the village didn't partake in it in any.
Well, yeah, I mean, we weren't alone in that regard, and of course, the SLA has a whole bunch of rules about what bars are required to do and what they're responsible for, and folks are not, at least theoretically, allowed to spill out of bars and be drinking on the sidewalk.
Right.
I mean, I could say as somebody who does not drink, that I'm perfectly fine with it as long as our experience of it does not create problems. If we start to have problems, then I would yank it in a second, but it seems like a reasonable amenity for adults, and as long as people show that they can behave themselves, I would allow it.
And we're thinking of also having a food truck, like it would be nice if we do sell alcohol, not to make it seem like that's the central attraction, you know what I mean, in terms of what we're offering. So, will there be non-alcoholic drinks? Obviously you're talking about food. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, the food truck would obviously sell, drinks. We could even sell drinks, bottled water or sodas ourselves. I could bring in an ice cream truck. There's, a lot of things we could do. And just, this is the first, attempt at programming this space.
Right.
We were already talking with Strong the other day, me and Kristen, about doing some events for teens and families, possible movie nights. So, we have some other things, not just necessarily, this one's a little bit more on the adult side, I would say. We have other plans to do things down there as well, even more family friendly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think my sentiments are similar to David's, that, like you said, Mike, it's a trial run. I'm comfortable with there being, beer and wine type alcohol there,
For that Jello shot.
for a first run. And then we see how it goes, and, we offer some other things as well. I don't know. What do you think, Peter? I mean, if
So I assume the selling of anything ought to be some third party. We don't really want to get into the business of selling anything, water or anything, do we,
Sure,
Mike? I mean,
sure.
that's the whole different business. And, I think obviously you walk before you run, which is exactly what Mike is proposing, see how this all plays out, see what kind of a crowd we attract. It's not that big a space, right? So,
No,
but, I guess I'm inclined to think that regardless, I don't know that we need the fences around it. I mean, the issue is somebody wandering with their beer elsewhere, right?
So we can think through alternatives and.
And I guess the other issue is you get too many people and people are sort of expanding the space, right?
yeah,
They're out onto the sidewalk, they're
Yeah,
over at the train station.
Most people probably have chairs and stuff, right?
Yeah,
And also when people are dispersing, it'll be a little bit chaotic. I mean,
I would just make sure we have the right amount of police there for the first time.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
gotta be, an important point is, especially given recent events, a real review of.
Safety.
safety, yeah.
Yeah, we're
then we'd
gonna,
have to think out some signage about, alcohol is limited, but they still.
Yeah.
If we don't have the fences.
And maybe communicate to Seoul too, that, this is on a trial basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
was it thinking to park, trucks outside there? Yeah.
Yeah, we would block the
This is for,
entrance,
so you don't
any
take-
vehicle being able to get in, we'd use village vehicles.
Not that.
That's good.
That will ever happen, but.
Ah,
All right, so I think everybody's feeling positive about the idea. Thinking possibly we don't need the fences.
Right.
You can explore that with your colleagues who might have done this
Also
elsewhere and see
be-
whether it's been any kind of an issue.
Maybe we can incorporate some lighting as sort of a direction where people should stay as well too, instead of,
Well, I mean, we've got some post lights there. I mean, part of the problem, part of the issue here is to be able to do these things fairly light on their feet and not end up spending, $6,000-8,000 in the setup and all of that, in order to make it happen.
We do have lights that were purchased for the block party though. That, Mike, I believe, right? We've got some lights that we purchased.
Yeah, I mean, we have I think we put up some flood lighting, sure,
I mean,
yeah.
they're a little bit,
There's
Yeah,
gonna be
they're a little
three,
bit like highway accident lights. or-
yeah, we
Yeah.
don't lights like
There's
that,
gonna be-
that'll kill the ambiance.
yeah, I
I
mean,
know we got some that we put up on the, not floodlights.
What's the lighting that's gonna be going into the space as is?
It's there now.
they're already the one.
Okay,
there's 3 new poles and then the monument itself and flags are lit up.
Okay.
It's hard to know what that looks like yet because, it's still kind of finishing up the process. But, we could look at some hanging some additional lighting ourselves. String lighting's pretty cheap.
I
Like
would love
the
that.
mayor said,
Oh, that would
I'm
be
not
nice.
trying to make this a major, expense, trying to do this fairly inexpensively, but well.
Yeah,
The string lighting there is great. I think the only thing that for me comes up is that when you have parents, with little kids in that area, we are gonna be, I know that at the tree lighting, this happens a lot.
Mhm.
Floodlights do provide some light, but you're going, where are they running? They're
So-and-so.
running everywhere. Yeah, so that's why I think the concept of the fencing would make sense there, but I don't think that that's very aesthetically pleasing, especially since we're trying to have this be a wonderful new space, but maybe we could look into the string lighting. I know that that would create a nice little barrier and understanding where things are.
Would the fencing be a big asset probably for
I
families
think if
with
you
little
could use
kids,
tables instead of fencing, like just sort of at least making an L shape.
Cause I've forgotten about that stage. of
Yeah, there's
parenting.
definitely, I mean, it goes a little pandemonium. So what I think is a great option is when it's like a V or, sort of like an L shape where at least if you can stay in that corner,
Yeah,
you know that they are there. It's
yeah, I mean, look, people have to realize that this site is surrounded by roads.
Exactly.
So if you bring your kids, you're gonna have to,
It's a certain stage of
Keep
life,
an eye
but
on
it's
it.
we
certainly,
can find ways of making it a little more manageable for
Yeah.
people with younger children, yeah. Okay, well, overall, Mike, we love the concept and I'm really grateful that you're coming up with all these ideas.
Yeah, programming that space is super important.
Thank you.
any ideas on bands?
I have a couple of mine. Actually, Kristen got a list, from our counterparts over in Sleepy Hollow with some local bands.
Okay, great.
So yeah, I think we'll have some pretty good options. And we'll start locking people in soon, because I'm sure some of these people book out fairly far in advance.
Yeah. All right, then one item that I think is easy to manage is the folks of the American Legion have sensitivity to the monuments, and as a result, obviously the bands are likely to be set up there. But we just need to avoid, folks hanging their coats over monuments and stacking up.
Yeah, we'll
Guitars
make
and that sort
sure
of-
we're very
yeah.
clear, like, here's a
Yeah,
stage
just have to
area,
be
we need to
respectful
respect.
of that.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right. Anything else to report? How goes it in the on again, off again world of staffing Panther Club?
Panther Club is moving forward. I mean, we're in good shape. Again, it's up and down, and you guys see it
Right.
because we got people
We see
coming
it
and
tonight,
going.
right? Yeah.
Right. But Carrie's jumped in, and it's been a seamless transition. So very happy with that. And we'll just keep hammering along with the staffing ups and downs.
Mike, did you want to talk about Pleasantville Day?
Yes. So I mentioned this a little bit to Paul, and I've talked about this internally, and I guess I'm really asking about maybe some feedback or what you guys think about possibly combining the block party, working with Chamber and Pleasantville Day, and making one event instead of two, kind of similar events.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What your thinking is?
Essentially teaming up with the block party and kind of adapting some of what they do and some of what Pleasantville Day is, and maybe having a few less vendors in Pleasantville Day. I know the block parties had a car show, so my thought was initially possibly trying to fit the car show in by where the diner is, and as you're walking down towards the post office, eventually would be your kid zone that would swing into the parking lot, and then you'd have vendors all the way down the parking lot leading into the civic space, which would be your food area and your entertainment area.
So what drove your thoughts about this? Because they're really at different times of the year, right?
Yeah, they're at different times of the year. It's just two rather big events that are, again, it's my opinion, they're fairly similar. I just thought we could maybe put together our resources and maybe reimagine Pleasantville Day to the Pleasantville Day block party, and kind of jazz it up and just have one bigger event.
Is that partly to save money? Is that the thinking?
No, not on my end. I mean, it would definitely
Yeah.
save some money as far as, manpower and village, overtime and just village personnel. But that's not my driving force. It was just, to me, they're very similar events. Why not kind of pool our resources and reimagine this a little differently?
Well, so in your mind, do you think that we should have an Oktoberfest then, which is something very different, or you just think we shouldn't do anything at that time of year?
I mean, we have the Ragamuffin Parade. We could look to do. Again, I didn't think about doing something in place of the block party. My initial thoughts were one event, whether it's in May or, September when the block party is. I think May would be.
May is the better date. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a dark cloud over Trustee Alvarez's head.
Yeah. Okay, so,
So we've talked a little bit with Mike about this, so it's not something new. I think so part of our discussion too today was I was gonna announce what the chamber met about the event, the dates that we're looking at for the block party this year and for the holiday celebration, the lighting ceremony. A big push was that they were very adamant about keeping the two roads as Washington and Wheeler. Washington, because of the fact that it has a lot of stores that it's our kind of extended quote unquote Main Street from Wheeler. And so when I advised if anyone was, what people's thoughts of moving the car show to, let's say, the Civic Center or the train station, because the other part of this is that we're looking to move the block party to a Sunday. Which is a request from a lot of the local businesses because the event itself was affecting their sales on Saturday because people weren't really going that normally go there. And on Sunday, a lot of them are closed, so they would open up to kind of make more. So it helped more. And I think as a whole, to the residents, I don't think it made that much of a difference. So that was going to be one of the requests. So when I was talking to Mike about it, you know, I'm definitely open to the idea of if we were to do one big event. But in talking to my board of the chamber, it was very adamant about having Wheeler and Washington stay as the main focuses of the block party. So if, let's say, we went with this and then also had the Civic Center, it could work in that we have, you know, 3 areas where people are doing different things. I do think that if we do this, I would say probably the best thing is if we were to do this is to implement this for next year. I think that this year, you know, people kind of expect the Pleasantville Day to be in May, and people kind of expect the block party to be in September or so. I do think that if we're going to go down this route, to just kind of to honor either Pleasantville Day where it is, where I think everyone kind of just knows if you've grown up in Pleasantville, Pleasantville Day is in May. And there's a lot that's kind of associated with it. You know, the Fun for Learning, marathon and all that, or the 10K, I should say. And 5K actually.
Yeah, you're getting more aggressive.
5K, yeah. 5K.
Marathon first. and then-
5K. Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm like, it's the 5K, but I think to, you know, reach out to all the different participating groups and also a lot, like, I think there's a bricklaying happens also around the time and homecoming with the high school. So I think that if we are going to do something like this, I think it would be best if we planned it for the following year. I do think that I do agree with Mike that if it is 2 events that are kind of the same and they're kind of the same idea, which would be a really big event, which it could work. And if we pushed it to May, I think it could work also.
What would change about it though? Like, what would these events, like, what would be added to each of these events if it was just one?
I mean, I was looking at it as how can we combine a little bit of what they're doing and a little bit what we're doing. So, you know, adding the car show, expanding our kid fun zone, having a few less vendors, maybe, you know, Pleasantville Day vendors. And I may even do that this year is it's school groups, community groups, and chamber members as first priority. And then if we have space, you know, we take on some other vendors. And, you know, and then, you know, you could also look at the civic space area and potentially turn that into kind of what we're doing with the concert series potentially. And, you know, introduce, you know, maybe a few more food trucks or even possibly alcohol. Again, another discussion, just trying to do, just trying to change it up a little bit.
I don't think we can change Pleasantville. I will say that.
Yeah, I'm not loving the idea of changing Pleasantville Day in the model of the block party. Like I appreciate your interest in changing it up a little bit. And it sounds, some of the ideas, like obviously now with the civic space, that gives you like a different configuration to work with, you know, block. Okay, let me simplify what I'm saying. I think of Pleasantville Day as very much a family oriented day and B, a kind of civic oriented day. You know, there's a lot of school groups, a lot of village committees are out there talking about the work that they do that day. So in that sense, to me anyway, the tenor and the purpose of that day is somewhat different from the block party. And I would be reluctant to lose that kind of essential focus of it, even though I can imagine like tweaking some of the how that is produced. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Again, I'm not saying, hey, we've got to do this. I'm throwing ideas out
It
there.
does bring up a good point though. I mean, have we ever talked about ragamuffin slash block party because of the, like, those two seem almost somewhat similar in that they would benefit from each other. Because so many people come down that hill.
Yeah.
And it's a huge pull. And that's when people are, but would do well to actually continue, because I always feel like it stops. I mean, yes, there are certain vendors there, like there's Jump House and there's things like that, but I'm like, I don't wanna hang out with like everybody here, and I would almost think that would be a nice time for the block party, people would continue to extend.
So we've, so it's kind of twofold in how we've looked at it. We've tried to move the block party to stay in September, only because of weather reasons.
Oh.
We've had some rough luck with the weather as it gets colder, it gets rainier. If we moved it to, you know, essentially the Ragamuffins, Halloween time, it's a hit or miss with the weather, and the planning of events like that, especially for vendors, is really tough. Because of the commitment that they do and getting, you know, they're expecting, you know, 1,000 people coming. And then we try to make that call on a Wednesday. It's a little bit, that's why we pushed
Yeah.
it out of October to more earlier in September.
It seems more Oktoberfest, that's why sometimes when the
Yeah.
block party gives,
The other element of it was, you know, for a while, it really was the most, I think, kid-friendly event.
Yeah.
That I think if you, obviously, bringing back something like that, Peter said if we now kind of bring alcohol into it, and not that it's wrong, but it's expanding that now. A little bit of that. So I think that's why I think it was different that way.
Not a good look to have, you know, Darth Vader swilling brew.
Yeah, but exactly, I think it's a little bit, what I have for this year, for example, I've thought of communicating to the vendors that are open on Sunday and saying, because a lot of them in the past have had, hey, come by, we're gonna have candy, so it's kind of trick or treat at stores, which is if they choose to do that, but to actually hold a whole event and get vendors, it's a little more difficult.
there's so we have the window painting and things leading up to it, I wonder if. I guess it's still two events, you know what I mean, but
Yeah, the window paint is very different. I mean, Mike and his crew do a great job of how they organize that, and
they do.
it becomes such a like time structured thing that I think if we were to add anything to it more, it would kind of get a little chaotic a bit. So I think,
Something to think on.
So I think the upshot, Mike, is we need to think about it.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I appreciate the feedback. Again, no issues here, just throwing ideas out there.
and I do think that the block party definitely, at least in my opinion, kind of sets us up to get an idea of how the community reacts to an event where there are kids around and there is alcohol around. Like,
Yeah.
we've seen how our community behaves when, and it's not, knock on wood, there hasn't been any issues, there haven't been any issues at all. Everyone's, you know, acted responsibly, so I think that in a way, I'm glad that we've done already this 3 years in a row, that I think for me, I'm more comfortable with being able to say, yeah, let's, you know, like allow the open container law to be waived that day, that kind of
And
thing.
that's a very current cultural thing, I think, because, I mean, the fact that Soul Brewery, like I was there on Saturday, I think there were 4 babies.
There
I
usually
mean,
are.
this is like a
Well,
very,
in the
like,
I mean, the whole back of Seoul has games, like
Games,
board
yeah.
games for kids.
Yeah.
Like you can, so it's, you know, it's become a bit different, a bit more of the norm. That's more acceptable. It's not like you used to be like, look, there's a baby at a bar.
yeah. No,
Now
it's,
it's a little different.
yeah, I think it's nice to tie it together
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah. Well, with that, since I have everyone here, the dates that we are proposing for the block party, hoping that this can get on, once we discuss everything here, that this can get on, just at least the scheduling, and then we can go through all the rest of everything. For the block party, we're looking at Sunday, September 29th, 2025. With a rain date of Sunday, October 5th, 2025.
Are you sure that
Yeah.
the?
29th is a Monday, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
would it be 28th? Sorry,
Yeah,
went to the wrong date, sorry.
a rain date of the 5th, is that what you said?
Yeah, the following week.
Okay.
And then the way we're looking at it is pretty much the same exact thing as we've done the last 2 years, where we would close Wheeler and Washington. And it would go again from 1 to 6 p.m.
Can you just repeat the dates again?
Sure,
Number 28. Sunday, September 28th,
or rain day,
October 5th.
Sunday, October 5th. Like I said, probably keeping the same exact locations. With the civic space, possibly what would help is that's probably where a lot of the parking could go, because it's a Sunday. So we're thinking a lot of people could park there, and we could set something up at the civic center where people can see it, and then kind of anyone that hasn't been around. But that also opens up more parking, and that's also the reason why we thought about moving it to Sunday, because it helps, because there's a lot more parking available. It would be a lot easier, it doesn't disrupt. There's a lot going on Saturdays between the farmer's market kind of finishing up at 1, and we're starting to close down Wheeler at 11.
Yeah,
So I think Sundays just is a lot
I
easier,
agree.
and we've done it on Sundays before, so it's an easier
yeah.
event to be able to put forward. That's for that, and then for the lighting ceremony, we're looking at Saturday, December 6th.
How did you feel it went this past
So
year?
So there was a little bit less with people than usual than what we've gotten. I don't know if that's specifically because it was a Saturday. I don't know because if it was the weather or people had events. But of everyone that was there and attended, everyone was completely excited that it was a Saturday, and that was just easy on them. It was more calm, it was more relaxed. So everybody that went, we're thankful that we made the change. So in that aspect, I think that worked out.
I heard
Saturdays.
there were massive parties in the neighborhood on Wilton.
Saturdays are on the 3rd and the 10th
Yeah.
in December.
Okay, let's see, let's get those dates, so
I noticed there were definitely less people.
Oh, wait, maybe
I'm looking at Saturday.
No, no,
Six.
six,
Yeah, you're
six.
Yeah.
right, sorry.
So that day, what we're looking at for the chamber is we're trying to do a much bigger event. Kind of like what Chautauqua does, a whole like shop and sip and shop or something like that they do. But we would do something similarly, but also where we could focus something on the civic center. We could, have carolers throughout the day and kind of culminate at the ceremony at 6 kind of thing. So that's what we're looking at just making it a lot bigger and working a whole day event, like promoting. This year we did it, but it wasn't as promoted as much. We had gifts for under $25 for kids to go shopping at different stores. There were specifically, so any kids that could go shop for their parents. So we'd have special promotions like that and shopping local. And then restaurants kind of working the same way where you would stop by and get check in a place, and then all leading up to the ceremony itself.
Can I just say, I mean, I understand the idea of like widening the scope a little bit, but it makes me a little uncomfortable, the idea of having like, distributing materials about shopping at the tree lighting ceremony. Like, I feel like the line between civic public activities and commercial activities is being blurred a bit much for my comfort level.
Gotcha.
Do you understand?
So
what I'm
well,
saying?
this would, so we wouldn't be selling anything at the lighting itself.
Okay,
It would be the event itself. There's stuff throughout the day going on at different places.
right.
That all kind of leads.
That makes sense. to me.
Nothing would be selling at
It
the
was
actual.
nice actually,
the
because there were
actual
so
place,
many
yeah.
kids that were in, like, oh, it was so cute. They were just like all going for these like cheap things, buying things for their parents. And it was kind of brought out a lot of young kids I hadn't seen shopping before the tree lighting, which I thought was really nice. Just more activity amongst young people going in and out of stores, like bringing a lot of, just give them a lot of responsibility. And they were like, oh, look, this one's on sale. Let's go to the bookstore. I heard they have it was just all these teenagers.
Exactly, the tree lighting would just be the culmination of everything that
Right.
really has, we're not in kind of selling anything at the tree lighting.
Okay,
That's just where it
alright.
ends.
I just
That's where
wanted-
everyone meets up.
That makes
Yeah.
more sense to me.
The other
But-
thing, we had, I think, a high school group that asked if they could promote their holiday grams at,
Oh, yeah.
but it was a high school group,
Yeah.
so I thought
Right,
that was a little
that's
different. So
Yeah.
that's why I was like, yeah, that's fine. But I wouldn't have anyone selling anything at the actual,
Okay.
like.
Fortunately, nothing
Alright.
in our society is commercialized.
Well,
So with that event, we've actually talked internally of some ideas, knowing that it was going to continue to probably be on a Saturday. One of the things we were looking at, and I've actually talked to Strong about potentially them sponsoring it and giving us the funds because they're looking to do some events and spend some money, is to use part of the parking lot And, for part of the day leading into the event, we would bring in a synthetic ice rink. If you haven't,
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's the kind of.
That's awesome. That's what, one of the things we had originally conceived of when we were, do you remember this,
Right.
Mike, when we were
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
talking about the civic
Yeah.
space?
so the synthetic ice is pretty neat. If you just Google it, you check it out. It's not quite like ice, but very, very similar from
Huh.
what I can see. I'm actually going to go, Cortland has one out most of the winter. I'm going to go check theirs out at some point. But we would look to bring that in during the day, and people can, the companies will come in, they set it all up, and they do the skates and everything. So we were looking at, we've gotten some quotes on that, and we talked with Strong about that. And they seemed eager to like sponsor it and pay for it for the event.
Really interesting.
And like we, the chamber, we're talking about possibly getting like an ice sculptor, something like that, like kind of on another end of, so kind of doing stuff like that, like holiday related.
I went to the Bronx Zoo Holiday Lights thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's.
They like
quite
do
amazing.
battles.
But they have this ice sculpture.
Yeah.
It's quite a compelling thing. He starts with this huge block of ice. He's using chainsaws and all kinds of stuff and turns it into some fabulous thing.
We did it once
It's a
here.
really very compelling thing.
Yeah, we did it once, I wanna say maybe 2011. We had like a winter shopping thing and we did it in Nona Park.
Right.
Oh, that was pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean,
And then-
something like on those, that same kind of idea, where we're kind of promoting just fun events throughout the day. I know that some local, like I think, Lucho's was looking, sometimes they get like Santa Claus or something that does pictures of
Oh,
Santa.
yeah.
So there's just different things that you could choose to go to if you want, just a festive day.
Yeah, Wood and Fire does that too. Can I ask, have we ever, I'm sure with this new civic space, have we talked about the tree there for the tree lighting there? I know that's not, we already just
So we
replanted
just
something.
Planted one.
We're ahead of you.
Yeah.
But no, I know, I just was
Yeah.
curious. That's not,
Yeah.
that's not,
So that's the next question.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked with Mike too, I think, and right, Mike, about.
Yeah,
where-
we're going to move the event there. We've already planted a tree.
Really?
yeah.
There's a tree
Yeah,
there, right?
there's a 16-foot Norway spruce in the corner,
Yeah.
already planted.
Yeah.
Wow.
In better condition than.
And are we doing that for this coming December?
Well, that, I mean, I'm.
That would be the idea, I think,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
Yeah,
And we're all there.
Among other things, we have electricity there and we wouldn't have to have the generator.
right, the generators are, kind of
Those lights
off-putting.
are pretty off.
It would, I mean, we could definitely try it out and see what the community thinks. I think this would be a good year to do
It'll
it.
be
It's-
I wonder, Mike, whether we would still have a lot of people who have a great desire to see the existing tree also lit. Not that it would necessarily be lit up as part of that ceremony, but
Probably.
That's definitely still doable. But
the Mario would be
we,
thrilled. Two
we,
trees.
we, yeah,
Yeah.
It's like my house. We had 10
we're
trees.
gonna continue to monitor the health of that tree, but we may be having a different discussion at some point.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the mosquito guys.
So
can do
this
that.
also begs the question,
Charlie
when are
Brown
we going
tree.
to do phase 2 of the civic space?
What's phase 2? Oh, my God. Okay. Come back.
Rarely have I produced that. It's not a good
Or
sign.
construction,
I think Jonathan somewhere, his ears just went up right now. What?
A lot of-
Definitely, I think some dust needs to settle here.
He's
but-
right there.
Yeah, well, that's.
Well,
All right,
So I think that, I mean, so as long as we can put, for me, like my request is if we can put those dates on and then just kind of a resolution, then for our end, then we can start doing our planning. And then get the logistics out to everyone.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
all right, and then Paul, you recall one year, the block party and homecoming were on the same day, and that.
Yeah, this one wasn't that,
So
we
this
checked
is-
that part.
Push forward, so we would run into that, right?
Correct. I had asked, Linda was looking into that, they just said it didn't coordinate that, they didn't have a game that. Okay. But I'll double check.
Well, having it on a Sunday avoids.
Oh, yes, correct, they don't play Sundays.
Right.
So that's even better.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mike, much appreciated.
I just have one more quick thing that I'd just like to
Sure.
go over. We currently are in the need of a new water truck. Our current truck has seen the end of life. So we have quoted out a new one, and my hope is to go to mini bid as soon as possible to bid out the truck we want. We're probably looking at all in about $120,000 for the new truck. And the hope would be that we would have it in time for watering season. If we don't, I have talked with DPW. They have, they call it Old 18, which is kind of their kick around truck at the moment. That could be temporarily converted to get us through the spring until our truck is ready. But I'm hoping to get the board's blessing to move forward with a mini bid.
And Mike, just one other point, when not used for watering, it can be converted to a regular pickup, correct?
Yeah, so this truck would have two beds, a flat bed, which would house the water unit, and a dump bed, and it's called like a hook and go. So we would be able to, in 10 minutes, swap out the two beds. It would give us some flexibility, especially in leaf season, because there are times where we just pile up leaves, and it takes a while to get DPW or whoever, depending on the schedule and what's going on, to get those piles out of our parks. We could literally drop our dump bed, fill the truck, and then like a tow truck, like a dumpster, put it back on the truck and take the leaves away, getting them out of our park much faster. It just gives us a little bit more flexibility. If we're going to buy another truck, I think having flexibility is a must-have.
Is there any possibility this could be a electric F-150?
No, we have looked into that. From what I've been told, and I'm not an expert on that, because of the process of the water tank pump, how it's all set up, it was not an electric.
I don't think an F-150 could pull that much weight either. The water tank is really heavy.
Okay.
And if you've seen the current watering truck, it is an antique.
Yeah.
Well, that truck was a conversion of an old chassis.
We should park it at Pleasantville.
Right.
Have people buy rentals on it.
It's not an antique in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
No, we can't move it. It's done.
A bomb full of blocks.
Do we get any grants for a new purchase truck? Is that just a full paid in full?
Yeah. Is it on our capital schedule? We typically, it's on our capital schedule. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at the enhanced work that is gonna be falling to parks between the plantings out in the civic space and whatnot, they're gonna be watering a lot.
I just wonder if, based on all the fires that are going on, if New York State will be upping any or giving any grants to support any of the,
No, probably, our best luck is probably a SAM grant, a member item through one of our state legislators, they tend to like that.
just an option.
All right, so are we hearing Administrator Morrissey say he recommends buying the truck?
I think we have no choice.
Okay,
Okay,
We have all these beautiful plants and we want them watered.
We do.
so,
Correct.
agreed.
Yeah.
all right.
Great.
Mini bid, off you go.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, you need more staff,
No, I am.
bigger building.
No, I'm in a very good place. Thank you guys for listening to me as far as staffing on what I needed and what I wanted. We have very, very good, very capable rec staff now. I couldn't be happier with what we have.
Well, likewise, so.
Oh, Mike, would you want to update also on the Roselle build, the playground?
Yeah, I
Right.
can give you a quick update. So we met with the playground group last week, last
Last week,
Thursday. And we have designs for actually Roselle and Soldiers. We tentatively have a build date of April. I'm sorry, early. I think it's the second weekend in April. Don't quote me. I don't have that in front of me, but I will be coming back to you potentially the next meeting to show you designs, prices on both, and your blessing to move forward. We will be using the same company again, which is Site Specialist, and the equipment is Landscape Structures. All three playgrounds are going to be a little different, and I think they're really, really nice.
Well, and the Nanahagan one has been a home run.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we look forward to that.
Yeah.
Things are cooking down there. at Parks
We're
and Rec.
moving. We're
Kidding.
moving.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, so we're only 4 minutes behind schedule to segue into our regular meeting. All right, good evening. We finished our work session and are beginning the regular meeting for the Pleasantville Village Board of Trustees. Today is Monday, January 13. And as is always the case, you're welcome to visit our meeting here at 80 Wheeler Avenue, and you can also log on via Zoom. You can pick up the Zoom link for this meeting as well as other meetings at pleasantville-ny.gov. While you're there, left-hand column, do not miss the chance to sign up for Pleasantville News if you're not already on our email list. And fairly soon, fair to say, Alyssa, when you log to pleasantville-ny.gov, it'll look a little different.
Yes, hopefully by the end of March, early April.
So Alyssa's been working with the web supplier, and it's a big update, right?
Very good.
Very big. So thank you, Alyssa, for all of that. We look forward to good news on that front. As is always the case, within a short period of time, you can pick up an on-demand webcast of this meeting and previous meetings at pctv76.org. So this is our first meeting of 2025, hopefully kicking off what will be a great year for all. Our next regular meeting is on Monday, the 27th, work session at 7, regular session at 8. I had a few announcements to make. First, Eric, you can report. Today was the second round of temporary striping on the new Manville Road.
Yes, so DOT mandated that the crosswalks, stop bars, turn signals be refreshing for the winter months. In order for us to lay down permanent striping, we gotta wait till the weather is 50 degrees or higher. So we'll come back and do that in the spring sometime and include the parking stalls as well.
When is we expecting the new traffic lights to come?
So the mast arm is on back order. It was supposed to be delivered in January. Now we're here in February. So we're hopeful that actually when that comes in, we don't need certain temperature to install. We just need, some.
Because the foundation is all there.
That's right. That's right. We just need a pretty good stretch of weather to put it in. So we're projecting that in February, but of course it was supposed to be January.
Right.
Okay.
So the civic space around the war monuments has taken shape. Obviously, the final landscaping is going to depend upon the arrival of spring, but we're going to get back the parking in that area in a week or so.
So the civic space contractor is going to demobilize for the winter. We'll get parking back probably by Friday for the weekend. We need 40 degrees or higher for them to pour the stone dust for the Bosque seating area. So that's likely to be, say probably March. So they'll come back and finish that off. There's some sodding, so they'll leave it probably fenced over the winter, and then put the finishing touches, but they're at the goal line at this point.
I had a question about the striping. So, when they do the permanent striping, are they going to repave again, or because it looks kind of smudged right now? I'm just wondering, like,
Yeah,
what that's gonna.
They'll refreshen the stripes.
Okay.
So this is
whatever-
latex paint and the permanent striping is this epoxy, but it can't be put down in this temperatures.
I see. Okay. Thanks.
So
The DOT has their specifications, and you can only use certain material during certain.
headline news, DOT has rules. But certainly the civic space piece is really coming out really, really nicely. And I've certainly heard a lot of positive comment, including comments from some folks who had some doubts about it. So I'm sure some still do, but come the spring when all the planting is in and the seating area is in place, I think it's going to be an exciting addition. And we just discussed in a work session with Mike Newman, our Parks and Rec superintendent, about some programming they're going to plan for the summer in that space, a series of 3 weekend concerts. So stay in touch on that front. Pool project.
Fingers crossed, still tracking to our timeline.
Which is jump in the pool Memorial Day.
That's right. They've been making good progress up there. Mother Nature has been kind for the most part, running into some cold weather spells that have delayed concrete pouring, but all in all, we're still tracking. Of course,
Fingers crossed, yeah,
fingers crossed.
that's good news.
Somebody asked me when we envision that the basketball courts up there would be made available again. Is that likely not till the bitter end of the work?
Yeah, likely not. I can get an update on that,
Yeah.
but the intent was to keep that closed until the.
Because it's a staging. So,
Yeah.
all right. And then am I correct in reporting that the Soldiers and Sailors drainage project is essentially complete?
That's right. There are some minor punch list items that they'll probably come back for, but all in all, that is done and went well.
Yeah, so quite an undertaking.
Impressive.
And now when there is a crazy rain, it will not turn into one of the Great Lakes.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
And Mike was just reporting that his playground advisory group is looking at new playground equipment, not only for Soldiers and Sailors, but also for Roselle. So
That's right.
Nanahagan already done, and so really great, good progress going on. We had a follow-up meeting. Yemi was involved with the State Department of Transportation and representatives from Andrew Sturt Cousins' office and from Mary Jane Shimsky's office about their progress. You want to?
Yeah, I think that it was, I think overall it was a good meeting. It was sort of a reminder, follow-up meeting. I think that's what I took away from it.
A lot of meetings.
Yeah, a lot of meetings like that with the DOT and the state and county. Yeah, I feel like I'm new to the nuance of politics.
Which probably is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I came in pretty hot, so I was like,
Yeah.
what am I doing tomorrow? And then, but I think overall we're still on track for red light camera. There's different elements to that. That's what we're aiming for. We feel that will have the most impact. Definitely, we tried to speak about different creative ideas, but it's hard. There's a lot of stipulations and rules, and until I read the manual from front to back, I don't think I can suggest many creative
I have a
ideas.
great
But
copy.
yeah, I
It's
know.
not the latest one, but-
It's hopefully something that we could just edge toward. There's some wording and things that they have to sort of put into this session, and I think it's more time, unfortunately, where I think that where I was trying to push the issue of there would be more people crossing and as from a pedestrian point of view, and also that we've had so many truck issues. There was no movement on that. So that was an unfortunate side of it, but the positive side is that everybody's still in agreement for the red light.
Yeah, so and I think we're headed in the right direction on that, but it doesn't happen anywhere near as fast as one would wish. There's action at the state, action at the county, a bunch of things. Eric has been on that case. I will say, just to reflect back to the community, to the extent that folks are listening, the Department of Transportation has said again that if the community wanted that crossing closed, they would be entirely willing to look into that. And I think we reflected back that although there certainly are folks who are of that opinion, the predominant opinion is that folks do not want to see that closed. Obviously, everybody wants it to be as safe as possible, but the impacts of closing it are too great in the eyes of most folks, I would say. Fair to say?
I think the benefits, I still always poll people and their opinions and creative ideas. I think we're lucky that we have data and documentation of all the things that do happen there in many ways, because it's not just word of mouth. So, it's a tough position. We do have some very strong opinions about closing it. I don't think the majority of the people that I've spoken to want to close it. They benefit from being able to cross and walk into town and use that easily. It's still very dangerous. And I think that we have had 2 crossing guards now that do not want to be there. It's hard to employ crossing guards anyway, but I think that
It's a tough post.
it's a very tough post, and they're risking their lives as well to help protect the people that do cross. We did put that in the DOT and the state and county's ear. But I think for now, we're still marching forward. I do think we mentioned them about vegetation, making sure we're on the schedule, and county cop presence. So those are the 2 things we can really kind of keep chipping away at. And they did follow up with us about the county cop presence, that they would push for more like during rush hour 9 to 5, the beginning and the end of the workday.
It seems like it's particularly dangerous at night. Do the statistics bear that out in terms of the data you were talking about that?
You know what, the trucks is where we get the most disruption.
The trucks?
Yeah, the
Mhm.
trucks hit often, like it could be twice a day. And I think we are not the only village or town that experienced that after speaking with them in this Zoom. So they are very aware of that. As far as a notification, there's too many legalities, like that would happen. Like there's notifications that you can have a truck hit before. And we suggested that to them. They're like, we can't do that. It's just too much on a liability on our side.
Hanging bars, kind of like
Yeah.
bar that you would hit.
Because that's,
Oh, I see.
and then they spoke also about possibly creating a notification to the powers that be at Google or people that make Google Maps. And maybe there can be some sort of notification of that. I personally have been trying to craft and work up a way to gather people that are interested in signing sort of a petition. I'm trying to do it the right way in the sense that just gathering the people that are interested in this topic. I think it does affect our village tremendously. And there are a lot of accidents, so.
What about ticketing? I mean, in terms of trucks, that seems like.
Yeah.
So trucks get ticketed. The
Yeah.
amazing thing, and DOT, as you can imagine, is
Yeah.
as frustrated as all the communities that are affected are. It would appear that among the many problems are that folks are depending on Google Maps or whatever. They're just paying no attention to the road. They're just being led by the nose. That as compared to, 20 years ago when that wasn't an option. And
Well, it's just a shame that they can't be there, because you can, even for my little tiny trailer, I had to get TomTom, which has the truck thing, because I
Yeah.
can't, as many trucks
But you
go
did
on
the
that.
responsible thing.
you have to pay for it.
Yeah, you pay $70 a year, but
Right.
for a full-time truck driver, that seems like. it would be
You
a
get, especially
no-brainer.
when they're destroying an entire truck by hitting a bridge.
Yeah,
So that's a frustration of DOT. And they are lobbying in every way they can to try to get the free services to try to add an overlay about truck stuff. But, if you buy, as a truck driver should, the Truck Safe app, you enter the size of the truck, the height, the length, the weight, the whole 9 yards, and then it is able to craft a route that's legitimate. So, they said they've tried everything. They've had physical barriers, they've had laser sighting, they've all kinds of things. And certainly it is clear as an automobile driver, there are lots of moments when it say low bridge ahead, low bridge ahead, low bridge ahead. So a truck driver, as happens routinely, who crashes into the bridge at Pleasantville Road is just on another planet, right? I mean, that you can't even possibly imagine that they think they're gonna fit. Right?
I mean, like going on an SUV, I'm like,
Yeah.
right.
when you see it coming, I'm like, how can they think it's gonna fit?
And we're not the number one location for this. I think the Hutch gets it a lot more from what they were saying.
I called the county police from the sawmill last week because I was behind it.
Same, I've done that twice last year.
Yeah, and of course, recently the county police get out there, and in many cases, depending on where they're able to stop them, they have to stop a lane of traffic to back them up.
Yeah.
To get off.
Yeah.
So it's, there ought to be heavy fines for all of this. I don't know how that works. So anyway, if there was anything good came out of the discussion of bridge strikes, it was that DOT is as frustrated as we are on that
Yeah.
front, and it's really quite an.
Yeah, and I think within our control right now is the county cop presence, the vegetation, and pushing this red light camera for now is what our goals are, for this.
For sure. And I will say a shout out to Mary Jane Shimsky's office and to Andrew Stewart Cousins' office. They have been very attentive to this. Either the senator and the assembly woman coming themselves to these meetings or sending their senior people. So that is very much appreciated, and certainly having Andrew Stewart Cousins, the state Senate leader, as our senator is helpful.
Yes.
So we are optimistic about that. All right, quick report on Albany stuff. Tomorrow, Tuesday, the 14th at 1:00, Governor Hochul will be delivering her State of the State address. As has been the case in recent years, they sort of dribble out in the week or so previous a series of announcements about things that will be areas of focus, but we'll find out quite a bit more tomorrow. And then the budget to follow. New York, I don't know if it's alone among states, I imagine not, has over a couple of decades gotten into the habit of larding a tremendous amount of policy into the state budget process, so that it isn't just a budget, it's essentially an omnibus of what money will be spent on and what policies will be enacted. That's a frustration of many, but it's also a political reality. So I'm the chair of the Westchester Municipal Officials Association Legislative Committee. And we have a draft document of 7 points that at the moment we believe are our highest priorities, and 15 points that are other priorities for legislative action that would affect Westchester communities. And we'll see what happens tomorrow, and we'll tweak that, but based on the governor's goals and plans. But at a future meeting, I'll just run quickly through what those legislative goals are, because there's certainly some of them are of significant concern to all of us. Obviously, 2 years ago, there was a huge focus on the governor's housing compact, which was a one-size-fits-all kind of a serious intrusion into local zoning laws.
Is that expected to come back because it's not an election year again? Or-
I do the tea leaves suggest that won't be coming back in the same way.
Okay.
And we have vigorously argued for, and I think last year's budget took a step in this direction towards an incentive-based program. Everybody agrees there's a significant housing problem. Everyone agrees that more housing has to be created. Communities like ours have I think done a pretty good job of that in the past decade. And one of the concerns we had 2 years ago was that we wouldn't have gotten credit for all of that. But I will also say that, what we're pushing for very directly is not just incentives that say, hey, you'll get extra credit in the Hunger Games for state grants, but very specific state funding, for example, for infrastructure improvements tied to housing progress.
Yeah, that
So-
would make a lot of sense.
So that, you would have the knowledge that if you are going to be adding extra impacts on your infrastructure, that there will be some state support to assist in building for it. So at any rate, stay tuned on that front. And if you're a civics wonk, 1 o'clock tomorrow, the governor will be delivering her State of the State address. Quick update on some events. Martin Luther King Day is coming up on Monday, January 20, a week from today at 11 a.m. at St. John's in the Fellowship Hall on Sunnyside Avenue. There's an interfaith service hosted by St. John's, but represented by pretty much all of the faith-based groups in Pleasantville and a number of civic groups. And that event is open to all, encouraging folks to bring food donations that will be donated to a food pantry. But I can report last year, you were there, I think, Nicole, an inspiring day to hear from so many different people and to be reminded of the words of Dr. King. So
What time is that?
11 a.m. at St. John's, a week from today, Monday, the 20th. So then the other shout out is to the Pleasantville Music Festival, which is scheduled for Saturday, July 12. You have until January 31 to take advantage of the Pleasantville Music Festival Winter Ticket Fest, which is an opportunity to get advance tickets at the lowest of all prices. So get thee to pleasantvillemusicfestival.com and read all about it. And as an aside, as those who are familiar with the music festival may know, we welcome new executive director Doug Panero, who has been a sidekick to our 9-year director Bruce Figler. Bruce has retired from the main role and will be sidecar to Doug this year. But we had an opportunity yesterday to honor Bruce Figler, and I do so again. 9 years of extraordinary service to this community in the role of executive director of the Pleasantville Music Festival. So get thee to pleasantvillemusicfestival.com. And lastly, a shout out to our now 3rd year presenting sponsor, Northwell Health. the owner and operators of Northern Westchester Hospital in Mount Kisco and Phelps in Tarrytown. Delighted to have them as the lead sponsor for the 2025 Music Festival. If you're of a mind to mark your calendars ahead, Pleasantville Day is Saturday, May 17. Memorial Day is Monday, May 26. The fire department parade is Friday, May 30. I haven't gone as far as to report the block party and the tree lighting ceremony, but I could. Probably enough said.
Yeah.
Any other comments, announcements?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I just wanted to express my compassion and support for people in the community who have family and friends in California. The town that I went to middle school and high school in has been entirely burned to the ground.
Oh my God.
And I spoke to somebody who lives in Pleasantville today, who grew up in the same town, and so we commiserated with each other. And we talked about the fact that, you know, it really is as if, you know, all of Pleasantville virtually had burned to the ground. So I know that there are a lot of people who live in Pleasantville who either grew up there or who have friends and family there. And I just wanted to express my my compassion and my support.
Thank you for that really unbelievably awful story. So, and not done. So,
Worse.
any other reports, announcements? Is there any comment of any sort from a member of the public? There's nobody in the room except us. Anybody online? Raise your hand in the chat. There being none, we will make our way to the first event on our agenda, which is public hearing. Is there a motion to open a public hearing to amend chapter 185 of the Village of Pleasantville Code regarding affordable, affirmatively furthering fair housing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If you take a look at our agenda online, all the backup for all of the items we have on our agenda are available to you, and included in that is this introductory local law of 2025. Eric, you want to give a quick?
Sure. So wanted to clarify in our code, obviously, everybody's well aware, any development with 10 units or more has a affordable housing requirement. For affordable housing that is under an ownership, it's 80% AMI. We are proposing to clarify that for rental units, that the AMI be 60%. Every year, the Westchester County Planning provides the guidelines for percentages of AMI in the corresponding households. So it does change year to year. And for reference, AMI for 60% AMI for a 4-person household is 93,700.
And how about for a 2-person?
For 2-person, it's 74,950.
That's AMI or that's 60% of AMI?
That's 60% of AMI. Yeah. For reference, 100% of AMI for a 4-person is 156,200.
Which is average median income in Westchester based on the HUD numbers.
That's right.
And just an indication of what you have to make for what it costs to live here, and the fact that, you know, incomes of that sort in some other places in the country would be, well, put you in a very comfortable circumstance. Not so much here. So certainly my sense that clarifying this is the right thing to do. I will say that in the context of our legislative committee and municipal officials association, one of the concerns is that the numbers for 60% AMI or potentially trap a resident in a circumstance where they can't afford to take a promotion because they would no longer qualify for that unit and lose their housing, which is circumstance a little bit unique to these expensive places. But the opportunity for somebody who's gotten a pretty modest increase that puts them above 60% AMI means that the next certification in the following year, they are potentially going to end up with a 1-year eviction notice. And it can, under some circumstances, create the circumstance where someone does not take better job that has been offered to them because it's not enough money to find a better place to live. So that's just a dimension of this that is hard. I mean, one could make an argument that we should make that number 80, not 60, for that reason. And yet choosing 80 instead of 60 means that a bunch of folks who would otherwise be eligible couldn't live here.
Yeah, it's already hard enough for anybody to get through that lottery. I'd be really hesitant. to
True,
raise that
yes,
number.
right.
Board want to consider 80%.
I feel like I don't know enough.
Well, painfully, I think knowing enough is so specific to individual circumstances
Yeah.
that, you could certainly end up in a circumstance, especially for somebody, older household on a fixed income where their opportunity to live in a place like this or stay in a place like this depends on something like this, and they're not likely going to be in a circumstance where in a future year they wouldn't qualify. The interesting thing about ownership housing is that once you qualify and own it, you can own it for the rest of time. But when you sell it, it has to be sold under the same affordability formula that you bought it under. And so this was quite a few years ago, sidebar to this conference I went to, there was a big project outside Austin, Texas, that was built on a decommissioned Air Force base. And they basically had a huge amount of land, but these were ownership units, building small houses, people bought them. And then as they got their feet on the ground and made more money, they could buy the next one that was being built, somewhat bigger house, and a piece of the increased value of that house was folded back to build the next ones. And so you ended up with a circumstance, sort of a perfect system where this new neighborhood was created of uncertain value, and the bigger it got, the more solid it got, the better the neighborhoods became, the more valuable they became. And yet everybody who had moved in there with this understanding, either a commitment as a deed matter or a commitment philosophically to say, when I sell this and there's a new value, the appreciated value, some of that is going to be handed to the next person who's going to get the same chance. It all depends, of course, on having this capacity to keep building with this endless amount of land, but it was a pretty interesting project. So, at any rate, that was a digression of sorts, but the nice thing about ownership housing is it gives folks who wouldn't have been able to buy a house an opportunity to do that. And they're not in a circumstance where they're at risk of losing it if they make more money in future years. But when the time comes when they do sell it, the same opportunity is created for somebody who was in the situation they were in way back when. So, but that's a kind of a very slow way to improve housing accessibility.
I don't think for the rental, I wouldn't want to move above 60% because I just don't like the idea of somebody making over $100,000 a year qualifying, especially somebody making half of that sort of out, and that just feels like.
Well, first off, in the rental units, there are not very many of them that are 4-person rental units. They're mostly 2s and 1s.
And that would be 74,950, 74,000.
But 80% what it would be.
80% you're talking about 99,000.
Yeah, so it's basically
Yeah.
somebody making $100,000 who could conceivably push out somebody making half of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I lean towards David's.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to go ahead with this too. I just throw it out there that there is some interesting and pretty articulate arguments about the situations that arise
Yeah.
when you live in housing that requires you to
Yeah,
requalify.
there's always bad effects of public health.
I have a sort of parenthetical question, which is, I feel like I not infrequently get questions about how lower, income housing of this type functions and how to get into the system. And so I was wondering if there are county resources or the village offers help, kind of guiding people through that process, and if there's anything else that we might do to kind of help people navigate that that difficult world, because there's so many people who are in circumstances, whether it's an elderly parent or a divorce, or somebody loses a spouse or something like that, where they want to be able to stay local, and it's difficult to do so. And it's a difficult, real estate market to try and figure out. So I was wondering what kind of resources are available for people to
Well,
better understand how that
I mean,
works.
county planning is at the center of the affordable housing piece.
Right.
And they're currently contracted with Westchester Residential Opportunities, WRO,
Okay.
which is WROinc.org. And in most circumstances, not literally all, WRO is engaged to do the lotteries
Right.
when new apartments come about, and also engaged to do the marketing for it. So WRO has lists of opportunities, as does the County Planning Association. Yeah, I'm sorry, department. But among the problems, of course, is that our circumstance is a good example where three affordable apartments became available several years ago at 39 Washington, and there are literally several hundred applicants, in some cases more than that. And only three get chosen. As it turns out, in many cases, folks have applied who don't qualify for one reason or another. They make either too much money for the threshold, or they have credit problems and can't qualify based on all of that. But there aren't a lot of opportunities, but WRO is one good example. And I can also tell you that Rose Noonan, who we spoke to earlier, Housing Action Council, has been a tremendous resource as well. And Rose's group, Housing Action Council, used to play the role that WRO plays. And now for the county, used to be Housing Action Council. You have anything to add to that, Eric?
No, I mean, typically they'll do a big marketing push when there's a development offering these affordable units. I mean, you'll see ads pop up on Mopar.com. You need to apply, you need to qualify, win the lottery, then be qualified again. And this not-for-profit basically administers that process. In general, county planning administers our affordable housing units, so they do the check-ins and the checkups to ensure tenants, and then the next tenant is also.
All right, any further comment on this public hearing? We have a vote later on this issue, so. All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing? First off, hold it, I should ask if there's any comment of any sort from anyone watching. There being none. Motion to close the public hearing. So, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. All right, let me share my screen and we will go to the resolution. All right, Paul, the first resolution of the year.
Aye.
Actually, I'm sure the minutes here. I just share the minutes here.
Yeah.
All right. Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the special meeting held on December 23rd, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was the short meeting we held, basically a bill pay meeting a couple of days before Christmas. Comments, questions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Number two.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for fiscal year ending in 2025 as listed below. Increase of revenue and expense of the capital fund of $200,000 for New York State Aid Recreation Capital Projects. It's a grant project for the Memorial Plaza Civic Space.
Is there a second?
Okay,
Yep, so we're recognizing the revenue. We had $450,000 worth of state grant funding in support of the Civic Space project. One from our previous senator, Senator Harcum, and one from our previous assembly member, Assembly Member Abenanti. It's a reimbursement grant. You have to spend the money, submit, and so we did our first round. So we have 250,000 left to reimburse on.
Thank you, Senator Harcum and former Assemblyman Abenanti for that. All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. David, number 3.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated January 13th, 2025 for fiscal year ending 2025 for the general fund, $255,265.82 from the special purpose fund, $823.66. The water fund, $161,721.31. The capital fund, $200. The refuse fund, $11,061.67 for a total of $429,072.46. The payment of claims is attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions on the payment of claims? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Yummy. Number 4.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Olivia Reska, Recreation Leader, After School Program, Panther Club Job Class Code 1047, effective December 21st, 2024.
Is there a second?
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. I've always wondered what happened if we don't accept the resignation. Paul, number 5.
resolved the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Philip Salamone, Recreation Assistant, Panther Club, Job Class 269, effective January 4th, 2025.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 6.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the pay decrease for JD Mejia, Recreation Assistant, Panther Club, Job Class Code 0269 from $25.50 to $22.50.
Is there a second?
Second, and can you explain that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Is this
we
the
don't
thing?
we don't do demotions very often. Well, first and foremost, it's not a demotion. She has transitioned away from more of a manager role.
Okay,
Too much on her plate right now to rec assistant.
okay.
Is there a second? We already got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. David, number 7.
All the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the hiring of Emily Weiss and George Coffey, Recreation Assistant, part-time, available job class 0269 with an hourly rate of $55 effective January 14, 2025 for after-school programs.
Is there a second?
Second.
So these are after-school programs, not.
Correct.
Not Panther
Yeah,
Club.
we have associated revenues that cover the cost.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Glad to see George Coffey.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was my high school varsity coach for soccer.
Yemi, number 8.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to advertise for bid 2025 1 for bus services for summer and team travel camp.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Number 9, back to Paul.
resolved the Board of Trustees hereby authorize the Village of Pleasantville to hold tax grievance night on February 18th, 2025 from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. 80 Wheeler Avenue, 2nd floor, Pleasantville, New York, 10570.
Is there a second?
We're really asleep. Second.
Guess we can go second.
Whoever seconds it has to come. We don't have a conflict with court that night?
Well,
No, we don't.
I was just checking to make sure it was on my.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. It's a thrilling 4 hours at 80
Yeah.
Wheeler Avenue. Number 10.
So all the Board of Trustees here, no, sorry, I think it's 11, right?
10, right?
10?
10, yeah.
Okay. Let's do 11, sorry.
The court officer.
Yeah, just a second. Whereas the Village of Pleasantville employs court security officers who are responsible for maintaining order and decorum and providing security in the courtroom and court premises of the Village of Pleasantville Justice Court, and whereas the job classification and specifications promulgated by the Westchester County Department of Human Resources pursuant to the Westchester County Civil Service rules with respect to the position of court security officer states that position is designated as a peace officer position in accordance with the criminal procedure law, and whereas New York State Attorney General's office has opined that the court security officers do not have peace officer status unless they are included within section 2.10 of the New York State Criminal Procedure Law, and whereas a review of section 2.10 of the Criminal Procedure Law reveals no mention of court security officers of the Village of Pleasantville Justice Court, and whereas the status of these court security officers is therefore ambiguous, and whereas state legislation to amend section 2.10 of the Criminal Procedure Law is necessary to clarify the court security officer status as peace officers, now therefore be resolved that the mayor and the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville request that the state legislature amends Article 2, Section 2.10 of the Criminal Procedure Law to confer peace officer status on court security officers of the Village of Pleasantville Justice Court as following. Quote, persons employed by the Village of Pleasantville serving as court security officers at such village court, provided, however, that nothing in the subdivision shall be deemed to authorize such officer to carry, possess, repair, or dispose of a firearm unless the appropriate license therefore has been issued pursuant to section 400.00 of the penal law, or such language as New York State Legislature deems most appropriate to effectuate the intent of this request, and be it further resolved that the village administrator or designee is hereby directed to forward a copy of this resolution to the offices of Assembly Member Shimsky and or Senator Stuart Cousins, and to take all steps necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution. I was just worrying about that this weekend.
Is there a second?
Okay.
So these, of course, are the reasons that a person might not want to become a village administrator.
Yeah, so, this has been an interesting road. Long story short, we employ, court attendants. At one point in time, the court attendants, as per their job, description through County Human Resources, were enabled to carry firearms. At some point in history, that was taken away, and it actually explicitly says they cannot be armed. So
These are licensed carriers. I mean,
they are
trained
police
the whole nine
officers.
yards.
They, in many cases, were former police officers or current police officers or current court security in other jurisdictions. So long story short, we had to take the arms away, or tell them they couldn't be armed in our court, and actually go on overtime and have a detective here to provide. So we have court attendants who are unarmed and then one detective on overtime. So we've been lobbying County Human Resources and our state legislators to amend the state law to enable our court attendants to be armed, which is apparently way more complex than we ever imagined it to be. Yeah. So we are not alone. There are many other villages that are exactly in our court right now. No pun intended, but many villages, again, have relied on court attendants being armed, and will have to go through a similar process. We fortunately or unfortunately are at the tip of the spear.
Along with Ardsley, I had a conversation with Gina Pickenich, who's deputy commissioner now of the civil service operation. I forget the title is over there, human resources.
Yeah.
And Nancy Kabuli, the mayor of Ardsley, and Gina, former mayor of Mount Kisco, is well aware of the frustration of all of this, and reports that Pleasantville and Ardsley are the test case.
So this is an uninformed question. Generally speaking, most of what our court does is traffic stuff, right?
They have criminal.
No, I understand that they have.
There's a vehicle and traffic night.
But, right, so when they have criminal court, if somebody's being charged with a misdemeanor or a felony, isn't there almost always an officer here for the arraignment because they're a witness or the arresting officer or something like that?
Sometimes.
I mean, the arraignment would have happened previous.
Right, okay, so for the court hearing.
Yeah.
So it's not covered by them being in the court, it's security for
Well, it
that night.
depends, I think, on their status. I mean, if you commit a crime but are released without bail,
Mhm.
I don't think you are then, I mean, I'm speaking out of turn here, but I don't think you come back with police escort.
That's true.
You are.
No, I was just saying, like, the policeman is coming to testify or to,
Depends on the case, I think. It's not always the same.
I mean, in general, our court and every local municipal court is they are at the forefront, right, of dealing with the public on these issues and have way less security in place than, let's say, the county court or
right,
federal court, as Paul can imagine, but they are at the ground level.
Yeah.
And are afforded the least amount of security. And in our situation, we have a rather small police force who, we have
no, the
a lot of
overtime is
special
really
events.
expensive.
Yeah.
Well, we need an
spread-
officer to be using the metal detectors and.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and our police department's rather spread thin as it is. We'd rather not waste that resource.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
I was just thinking,
towards
like, in
security.
terms of the traffic ticket night, people are at least as angry at Peter as they are at the judge for that. So, you know.
we're giving the people what they want. They want more enforcement so that we can fix Wheeler.
That's right.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Send it by horseback to the
Let's go
senator and the assembly person.
up to Albany.
Number 11, Yami.
Yes. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accept the following donations. CN.0037 for the Storyboard Eagle Scouts Project, Kevin Roberts Contracting Incorporated, $500, Jacob Burns Film Center, $200, Lions Club of Pleasantville, $100. There's the donation memo attached.
Thank you, Kevin Roberts, Jacob Burns Film Center and Lions Club, a great thing and.
This has
thank
been a
you,
really
Scout.
exciting project and I'm thrilled it's there now. You guys can.
People are
anybody
loving
can
it.
Go.
Yeah.
There's
See
a
it.
post on the 105.7
That's great.
And they've also provided so that they can change the story, so there's money to
that's
do
cool.
that.
Scout Dundas has done us proud for sure.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Oh, she needs a second.
second.
third, all in favor? Aye, motion approved. Number 12, Paul.
Result, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the new hire of Elizabeth Inga and Sophia Myers, recreation leader, after-school program, Panther Club, job class code 1047, effective January 14, 2025, at an hourly rate of $22.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Welcome Elizabeth and Sophia. Number 13. Oh,
Whereas a public hearing was held and closed on January 13th, 2025 concerning introductory local law 1 of 2025 to amend chapter 185 of the Village of Pleasantville Code regarding affordable affirmatively furthering fair housing. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby adopts introductory local law 1 of 2025, which shall become local law 1 of 2025 upon its passage, and the laws attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is the subject of the public hearing that we had earlier tonight. Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Number 14, David.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby appoints Meredith Hale as library trustee for the Mount Pleasant Library Board with the term to expire December 31st, 2026.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Welcome Meredith. Thank you for being willing to take on this service. Yemi, number 15.
Yes, resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to enter into an agreement with the town of Mount Pleasant for the purposes of cooperative bidding for highway construction materials.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Back to Paul, number 16.
Result that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the creation of a capital account for the purposes of purchasing a new electronic Ryan lawnmower for the Pleasantville Recreation Department in the amount of $24,999.
Is there a second?
Second, and may I point out that that's paid for by a grant from New York State that our climate smart community, but really Alyssa largely got us.
Yeah.
You can write on it first.
I was gonna say, we have a picture of Alyssa riding the mower.
Yeah, maybe for the,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
for the
motion,
Ragamuffin parade. you know.
Yeah.
motion
I'll eat it.
approved.
Yeah.
Number 17. You opened the wrong page there. Okay, there we go.
Is that me? Yes, okay.
That's you, yes.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the creation of a capital account for the purchase of 4 license plate readers for the police department in an amount not to exceed $56,600.
Is there a second?
Second.
So there's a grant attached to that, and these are license plate readers that will be largely managed by the county.
Yeah, they finally decided to pay for it, huh? The county?
Yes, yeah, so it's up to 4, we may, depending on, connectivity, go down to 3. But yeah, as the mayor points out, it would be in an effort to expand the county's LPR program.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Number 18, David.
Resolve the Board of Trustees hereby authorize a change order in the amount of $130,933.30 from Job Flow Construction LLC for the purposes of civic space improvements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It's tricky.
Quick update on that, Eric.
Yep, this covers a variety of change order work. One of the major items was the curb and sidewalk that's directly across from the diner. Was supposed to be in the Manville Road project scope, but because of operations, it was just easier to have Jalico do that. So that came out of the Manville Road scope into their scope, so that was a large portion of that. We added the decorative lighting. We also did the sidewalk on the other side, so from the train underpass up to Manville Road. Originally, we were gonna leave that as is, but if you're gonna put in a nice new civic space, you didn't wanna leave old sidewalk.
Yeah,
We added the holiday tree and the associated electricity. And I think I covered most of it. Did I leave anything out?
I think you did.
Okay,
Jabalco has done really an impressive job.
a great job.
Shout out to them.
that's great.
Yeah,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Number 19, Amy.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes a discounted Pleasantville Musical Festival ticket rate reduction of $7 for an adult ticket and reduction of $4 for student senior tickets for followers of select bands, sponsors, and cultural partners.
Is there a second?
second.
So this is kind of an evergreen resolution that would avoid the need to do one every time a specific one comes up.
That's right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 20, back to you. Paul.
Result of the Board of Trustees hereby authorize the hiring of Richard T. Urban and Luis J. Barrero Jr. as school crossing guard, job class 141, effective January 28, 2025, on an hourly rate of $22, pending fingerprinting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great news, 2 new hires for crossing guards. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 21. Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees, in support of the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department's annual parade on Friday, May 30th, 2025, authorizes that no parking signs be posted with restrictions in effect for Friday, May 30th, 2025, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the following locations.
I think you've heard the
As stated in the record,
Yes.
further resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the police chief to tow all vehicles violating this temporary parking restriction and to cancel the event due to adverse weather conditions or safety concerns, and further resolved that the Pleasantville Fire Department shall provide proof of insurance for the event. And therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the parade permit application from the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department to conduct a parade on Friday, May 30th, 2022.
That should be 2025.
Yes.
Typo in the
Yes.
resolution.
I'll learn what year it is.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, mark your calendars, Friday, May 30th, one of the best nights of the year.
You use 6 o'clock, right?
7, I think is.
7 they start, okay.
David, number 22.
Resolve the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the creation of capital account for the purchase of IT upgrades for the police department in an amount not to exceed $12,700.
Is there a second?
Second.
This will
Also covered by.
all get covered by grant. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 23, Amy.
Yes, sure.
Somehow the one online is only up until 21. The one
You
we
scroll?
posted.
Here.
You can scroll further, it probably reveals itself.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby reappoints Rebecca Myers and Anchor as library trustee to the Mount Pleasant Library Board with a term to expire December 31st, 2029.
Is there a second?
Second.
These are existing trustees being reappointed to a new term.
That's right.
Trustees.
We have to appoint them based on the town's fiscal year, which starts January 1. Otherwise, all of our other reappointments are at our organization.
Great, and then the last of our resolutions tonight, number 24, back to you.
Result the Board of Trustees hereby authorize the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Housing Action Council Incorporated for +1 ADU program.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was the subject of a work session discussion and a Zoom visit we had from Rose Noonan of Housing Action Council. I think a really good program, one that has the opportunity to create some opportunities here in Pleasantville. Again, nothing major, just a few opportunities here and there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. That is the last of our resolutions as we begin 2025. Is there any new business of any sort?
The first full moon of the year.
All right, there you have it. It's quite impressive too, I will say.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. Any comment of any sort from a member of the public or on Zoom, raise your hand. There being none, is there a motion to go into executive session on matters of real estate?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will sign off and head to executive session. Thank you if you are watching or watch in the future. Again, we are back in 2 weeks on Monday, January 27. Happy New Year to all.